And today we're having a very special guest by the name of Nelson Tressler. Nelson's success and life philosophy come from his unique beginnings: rape, murder, extreme poverty, and the biggest trail ever to hit his small town were just a few of the things waiting for Nelson upon his birth. The child of a 15-year-old mother, Nelson's young life had him starting at the bottom. The youngest of 5 children and raised in poverty by an abusive stepfather, Nelson turned resourcefulness and tenacity into a life skill. He played college football and joined the U.S. Air Force on the GI Bill, completing tours in Saudi Arabia and Turkey. While leading the Air Force, Nelson fulfilled his biggest goal of being the first person in his family to get a college degree. Now let's go to today. Nelson founded IGotSmarter company, centered around changing the world one person, one goal at a time. Built on over 25 years of life's lessons he picked up from his Murder to Millions story. IGotSmarter implements the philosophies, goal setting, and personal development techniques that Nelson has honed to build his personal success. Welcome, Nelson.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for that introduction.
Well, let's start at the beginning. You started with a wall of adversity to climb. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I've got quite the origin story. My mom became pregnant with me when she was 15 years old. And while she was pregnant with me, her father, who was the local trash collector in a small town, drove into the town square. There he spotted 2 police officers. He stuck a gun out the window and opened fire on those police officers, killing one and critically wounding another. And eventually my grandfather was captured and brought to stand trial, where he was facing the death penalty for what he had done. And during my grandfather's trial, my mom got up and testified to the jury that the reason that her father had shot and killed that police officer was that that police officer had raped her, and she was now pregnant with his baby, who was me. And my mom's testimony worked. The first trial ended in a hung jury. Eventually, my grandfather was tried again. The state took the death penalty off the table because of what my mom had testified to. Eventually, he was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, where he spent the rest of his life, more than 40 years behind bars, letting behind my mom. She was one of 15 children, and now me in this small town to deal with the circumstances of what he had done.
Small towns can be pretty cruel, can't they, Nelson?
Yeah, if you've ever lived in a small town, they're all up in your business and they know everything about you, and about half of it's true. So yeah, it's pretty brutal. And in this circumstance, you know, everybody knew about it. It was the biggest thing that ever happened in this town. Everybody knew my family and my family name, and they knew me and what I represented and what my mom had said happened.
So how did you harness the resourcefulness of overcoming that wall of adversity?
Well, yeah, I mean, after that, of course, you know, I'm born to a 15-year-old mother, which is hard enough in any circumstances, but under these circumstances, it was brutal. And then my mom ended up meeting a man who would become my stepfather. Come to find out very quickly that he was an alcoholic, very physically and emotionally abusive to me and my mom. And eventually, in quick succession, they had 4 more children. And because of the lifestyle they're living, a lot of the basic needs of my siblings fall upon me: diaper changing, bottle feeding, waking up to put crying babies back to sleep. And my life was in chaos. And because of the lifestyle my mom's living, she would rather me stay home from school and help her with the babies than go to school. And I remember getting to the end of 4th grade, that last day of school where you get your report card and you find out who your homeroom teacher is in 5th grade. And I remember looking down at my report card and seeing that I had straight Fs and that I wasn't moving on to 5th grade, that I was being in 4th grade again. And it shouldn't have come to a surprise. I probably missed 50 or 60 days of school. And then, come to find out the next year, I couldn't read, I couldn't write, I couldn't spell. They placed me into special ed. Come to find out I had dyslexia. And that's the way my life went until one day my stepfather was walking home drunk from a bar, and there was somebody else driving home drunk from that bar, and they ended up hitting and killing him. And it was at this time, here's my mom. She's dropped out of school in the 8th grade. She's never worked outside of the home. And as hard as her life has been with my stepfather, losing him and trying to figure out how she was going to care for this family on her own was just too much, and she couldn't figure it out. So it was at this time that she decided she was going to take her own life. And she attempted suicide. And fortunately, she wasn't successful. But when she did get out of the hospital, it was at that time that she decided that our family was going to get split up. And that's when I went to go live with my grandmother, who was the wife of the man who shot and killed the police officer. And now, for the first time in my life, there's always food in the house. The lights always turn on whenever you hit the switch. And, there was always heat there. And that was kind of the fork in the road for me, because up till that point, I was just based on survival. I was based on staying away from my stepfather so I didn't get beat. And I was worried about if I had enough to eat. And then one day, a counselor from the local university came to talk about what it would take to get into college. And a lot of bells and whistles kind of went off in my head at this time. I'm like, if I could get a college degree, the rest of my life after that would be easy. I mean, that was my mindset there. And a little bit of background, I mean, of the family that my mom came from, of those 15 children, only 2 had ever graduated high school. None had even attended a college. So I had no idea what a college graduate was, and I knew it was going to be hard. And like with anything that is going to be hard, that voice in the back of your head just starts screaming at you all the reasons you shouldn't even attempt it. And I remember thinking, Nelson, you're in special ed. You can't read, you can't write, you have dyslexia. You'll be lucky to graduate high school. And, but I had nothing to lose. And long story short, it took me 12 years from setting that goal. It took me 4 different universities. It took me 4 years in the United States Air Force. But finally, I became that first person in my family to get a college degree.
Congratulations. That really has a lot of kudos. One of the philosophies in my book, The Secrets to Living a Fantastic Life, is it's not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens. And you epitomize that. You certainly are a person that had it happen to you, and yet you overcame it.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that's one of my philosophies. I mean, you can't control what happens to you, but you absolutely can control how you react to it. And I think so many people, and the subtitle of my book, The Unlucky Sperm Club, is you're not a victim of your circumstances. You're not a victim of what happens to you. You're actually a product of your choices. You are what you choose after what happens to you. And fortunately for me, I realized that. I mean, after getting a college degree, I became obsessed with goals and personal development, because I realized, holy crap, here's somebody like me who came from where I came from. If I could use a goal, even though I didn't even know what a goal was, if I could use a goal to get a college degree, what else could I do with my life if I tried to become a better version of myself, if I use goals to achieve these things? And for the last 25 years, I've used goals and personal development to design a life I couldn't have even imagined. I just celebrated my 25th wedding anniversary. We have 3 awesome young men that are well on their way to being, productive people. I've become, the top salesman worldwide for a top 5 commercial real estate firm several times. I've started 10 or 12 businesses, including one of the largest privately held pet resorts in the country. And all of these things, I couldn't even have imagined that growing up. But because I realized that I was in control, that I could set the sail of my ship through goals and personal development, I was able to design this life that I'm living now.
Fantastic. So what would you tell a person that has a victim mindset?
Yeah, I mean, it's not empowering. The problem with a victim mindset is you're blaming You're blaming things in your life on other people. And the only way that things are going to change for you is if something changes or somebody else changes. And now you've lost all control. One of the philosophies in my company, IGotSmarter, is we take 100% responsibility for our success. It doesn't matter what happens to you. I mean, just like you've talked about in your book, it matters what you do once that happens to you. And when you have that victim mindset, you've thrown up your hands. You've given control away. You've told yourself there's nothing you can do because this happened or because this person did this or didn't do that. And now you have to wait for that to change or for that person to change. And what can you do except wait? And that's what happens to people who get in that victim mindset, is they let time tick by waiting for their circumstances to change or somebody else to change, as opposed to taking control of it yourself and realizing that you are exactly where you choose to be.
Exactly. I think that's very important. Now, Nelson, how do you create the person you are capable of becoming?
Yeah, in our program, IGotSmarter, in 6 Months to Success, we design an alter ego. We all have that perfect version of ourselves living inside of us. That person that always makes the right decisions. They'd never dream of yelling at their spouse. If they were looking to be on a diet, they'd never, dream of cheating on the diet or missing a workout. We all have that version, and we design that version. My alter ego's name is Fred, and Fred always makes the right decisions. And that's how I have been able to live to a version of myself that I couldn't have imagined, because I keep making those correct decisions that Fred would make. And eventually I've surpassed the original Fred. And now I'm moving on to becoming even a better version of myself. And it's a lifelong process. I don't think we'll ever reach it in this life. But once you show people the potential that lies within them, they will never be the same. And that's what I found, is there's so many people out there that feel like they aren't worth anything or they can't accomplish anything. They don't see that potential that lies within us. And once you can show them that and see that we're all special, that we all have that potential, they'll never, ever be satisfied with average again. They'll realize how truly amazing they are. It's a different amazing. Everybody has their different amazing, but what's in them is amazing.
I think it also starts with baby steps, doesn't it?
Oh,
Nelson, you can't do it all at once.
yeah, absolutely. And again, in part of our program, IGotSmarter, with goals, people will set those annual goals, right? And annual goals fail at a tune of 90% within the first 60 days. But what we've done is we take these big goals, and everybody has big goals and everyone should have big goals, but we break them down into what we call a 4-week sprint. And that doesn't mean we can't do the big goals. That means we're going to take, hey, if your goal is to write a book, maybe over the next 4 weeks, you're going to write 2 chapters, as opposed to, I want to write a book. There's no urgency there. It's such a mass accomplishment, and your brain kind of shuts down because it's so huge. But your brain can get behind. In the next 4 weeks, I'm going to have 2 chapters written, or whatever. I'm going to design the book cover, or just little baby steps that you can say, yeah, you know what, I can get that done. And we're definitely fighting our brain. I mean, we're working with a prehistoric brain that is designed to keep us safe and to keep us comfortable and to keep us where we're at. And when you set those big, long goals, our brain's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't know if it's safe there. I want to back off. But when you kind of trick that brain and say, well, okay, let's do this over the next 4 weeks, your brain can say, okay, I can see that. I'll allow that. I'm not going to throw up the panic button on you.
That sounds really good, Nelson. Now, how can people get in touch with you if they need more information and want to follow your plan?
Yeah, you can go to nelsontressler.com and everything is there. The book, The Unlucky Sperm Club, You're Not a Victim of Your Circumstances, but a Product of Your Choices, is there. You can also find that book on Amazon or Audible if you prefer listening to your books. And then the IGotSmarter program is also at nelsontressler.com. It's IGotSmarter, all one word, and that is available at the App Store and both Apple and Android.
Sounds perfect, Nelson. Thank you very much for being our guest today.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a fantastic day.